give on time management, stress management, and preparation. So I'll hand it over to Ruby, who will introduce Life Beacon, and then I can hand it over to the 3 speakers. So Ruby, it's over to you.
Thank you, Caitlin, and welcome everyone to this event. So I'm from Life Beacon, and I was approached by Caitlin to organize and support this event. Life Beacon, it's a non-governmental organization that supports the advancement of students and their education and help and supports them to reach a sustainable life. So today, we are here to give you tips on exams, and would mainly be talking on 3 topics. That's time management, preparing during time management during and after, during the exams, before and during the exams, stress before the exams, and preparation before the exams. And we have 3 presenters. We have Ursula, Flanny, and Raymond. So because of time, we'll just go straight ahead and they would introduce themselves to you. And I may get some tips that would help you coming exams. Thank you. I would allow Flanny to take over. I would also send the slides on the group chat so that you can always refer to it after the session. We would also, like Caitlin has said already, we would also have a raffle at the end of the section. We would have question time as well. So relax and enjoy the event and take some good tips for your exams, your upcoming exams. Thank you. Flanny, you can go ahead.
Hey, Ruby. Hi, everyone. I'm Flanny. Can you? Okay, there we go. I'm Flanny. I'm a master's student in international business. And I'm just gonna talk to you, give you a couple tips for preparing yourself for your exams. I'll jump straight in. So the first tip I have is for you to look into your module objectives. So at the beginning of every semester, your lecturer would make this available on Learn for you. It's good that you go back to it, read it, and specifically look at the objectives, because that's the whole point of the module. So when you're revising or trying to figure out how to answer a question, even for your coursework, not just exams, you know exactly what they want you to have learned. So you're not going to miss the mark. So it's really, really important that for every module that you're revising, your first thing is to look at the module brief and head over to the objectives and make sure you use those as a benchmark for your revision. The second tip is go for past questions. Some modules may be new, so they might not have past papers. Some of them would have past papers, but be careful because sometimes the format of the papers changes on some years. So make sure to also contact your lecturer to just make sure that the format of the past papers available on Learn would be similar to the format you're going to get for your actual exam. So make sure you make use of those resources available to you. Also identify, whenever there's the past papers, sometimes some lecturers will also make available sample answers, like maybe a previous year's answers for a question. And it's good that you look at that, not to copy the answer or to copy the content, but to copy the structure and how the person answered. So lecturers, every person is different in general. And you have to understand that your lecturers are also different. So one lecturer might prefer that you write in a certain style, while another lecturer would prefer another style. So sometimes it's good that you look at the sample answers that they've each given and identify key traits of writing styles that you see that these sample answers have, because probably that's the secret to, first of all, having your lecturer's attention and making sure for this module, you're writing in this way. For that module, you're writing in this way. So just make sure, and the traits I'm talking about can be things like do you, when you're writing your exam, okay, this is going to be virtual, so you're going to be doing it on your computer. Does your lecturer like things being broken down into paragraphs? Do they want the extra details of headings? Like, it could literally really like vary from different things. So just make sure you look out for that, because it adds extra points, believe me. um Strategically pick topics per modules that you're comfortable with. um I'm in the business school, so we tend to have these patterns, especially my undergrad. um Everything is very theoretical at some point, and most modules which really touch on theories would always have a case where they're going to tell you, we've done 10 topics for the semester, but maybe 7 out of those topics are coming, or 5 out of those topics are coming, and in your exam you're going to have to answer 3 questions. So, and each question is on a topic, so you need to strategize your revision, because you have other modules, so you might not be able to study all 7 of the topics, and actually that would actually overwhelm you. I found myself doing that before, and I ended up, like, for one exam, I started talking about something I learned in another module. Although if you do it smart, it kind of just like shows that you're learning and you're kind of relating all your modules together in a smart way. Or it could go really off and it just sounds like you're you don't understand what you're doing. So just make sure you pick topics, strategize. I would always advise, don't, like, especially with exams, don't try and be too adventurous. Focus on what you actually understand. So what was already sticking to your mind, whatever you instantly grasped in the module, make sure those are like in the top 3 topics that you're doing. And if you want to challenge yourself, of course it's good to understand other topics, but in terms of what you answer in the exam, stick to what you're really sure about and you understand. The next tip is you need to set a timetable for studying. I know I'm saying this because it's kind of like I try to do a timetable as well. So I'm not going to like be a hypocrite and be like it's always like easy to apply and follow the timetable, but it's good to try. My timetable is usually like a to-do list. Sometimes if I really want to be organized, I would do it on my calendar, but other times I find it better just doing it as every single day I do a to-do list. So I'm like, okay, this is all that I have to do today. And as I do the task, I take it, and it's therapeutical because you literally see what you're achieving as your day goes. So just kind of figure out what works for you. If you want to timetable your whole week, timetable your whole month. I know people who have like massive boards, and for every single day they have what they're gonna do and they check it out every single day. I'm not able to do that, so I don't do that, but it might work for you. So just kind of figure out how you can organize yourself for revisions, prioritize. Let's say your exam, okay, your exam will be in a month, but for next semester, if you're not in your final year, when you're getting ready for exams, let's say 3 months ahead of time or 2 months ahead of time, once you've submitted your last coursework, I would say look at your modules again, prioritize the modules which are hard. For this, the first point I was talking about was the topics for the exams. You prioritize what is best for you. But for this one, you need to prioritize the harder ones first, because it's going to take a longer time for you to understand the module. So it might not be fun, but it's better you get a head start on the difficult ones. So when exam pressure comes in, exam stress comes in, which Ursula will talk to you about, when all of those overwhelming things come when it's like D-Day, you're not panicking about a module that you don't really understand because you've already done that panic months ago. So definitely do that. This one, I use it with like a pinch of salt. Study buddies. I think it's very important that you have people that you're able to study with. But again, all of us are different. How we study is different. Your study group might be a group that you sit down with and you talk for hours and you don't actually get anything done. If that's your case, no study groups, just study in your room. The day you're doing a group study is when you know you've sorted out what you need to get done on your schedule. You've understood what you need to understand. and then you go for your study group. Don't go for your study group not understanding certain things and expecting that out of that you will understand it, because if you guys are not productive, you won't be productive. So don't fool yourself, please. But if you have a good group of people, I did group study in my first year of university, and at the time it was with my two best friends, and it was non-existent. We would sit and open the module notes and probably like literally copy and paste the module notes from what is on our computer onto our textbooks and feel like we've done something because we've literally written the exact same thing on a book, and go like, okay, we've revised, but we we didn't. But then in my third year, actually, which was last year for my bachelor's, I met I met a girl in one of my modules. We weren't friends, but then she was even in a completely different course, but we had overlapping modules. And we just decided that, okay, maybe we should work together. And perhaps because we didn't start off the whole friendship basis, it meant that when we met, we actually worked. I was really productive. I would always learn from her, and she'll also learn from me. So I think you need to be strategic with also who you study with. It doesn't always have to be your friends. You need to find people who you're actually going to learn with. So it's harsh, but you need to have that mindset to actually make the most of your time. Next up, because we're in COVID times, I know that all your exams are going to be at home. Some may have the 2 hour gap. Some may have 24 hours. I don't know whichever way works, but you're going to need a workstation. So I suggest, I'm putting this in the preparing for exams bit because psychologically, if your brain is used to a certain part of your house or your room and it associates it with working, on the day that you're doing your exam, once you sit down, your brain knows I'm studying. So let your brain get that, make it like a habit. And every single day when you're planning on studying, sit down that exact same place you plan on doing your exams. And trust me, it's gonna have a different psychological effect for you and how productive you actually are. Even in your revision time, sometimes you find yourself sitting down saying you're gonna revise and then you completely procrastinate. But if you reach the point where it's like, okay, I've sat down here, my phone is away, and I'm focusing on this, I'm doing this today, you're going to sit down and like 4 hours have gone by and you've actually been productive, and it's just been at this specific spot. So don't take the workstation idea for granted. Set it up and make it your own. Next one is prepare a big notebook. I really hope I'm not going over time, but prepare a big notebook. It depends on how you study. Like I said, you may want to have a notebook per module. It's good to make notes when you're revising, not notes like I did, where it's like literally copying the words and just putting down. Notes from what you've understood. I write down stuff in my own words. Sometimes my notes look like really funny. Sometimes they don't even look academic because I may explain stuff in my, like, how I understand me. So if there's like a theory from someone whose name I can't completely pronounce, I would write it and then probably put like in brackets, remember it like this. So it's like, I know what I'm talking about. Other people look at my notes might not. So work with your notes, figure out if you want to do a book per module or one book for all your modules. Sometimes I use the one book for all your modules tactic is only when you know you're not going to actually come back to these pages. Maybe how you work. There was a point I would use post-it notes, or I'll just take a sheet from the book. I won't actually be writing in the book. I'll just take sheets from the book, write key things, and just stick them in my room. I kind of look like a maniac, but it works. So, so try and figure out which works for you, but definitely have that in your shopping list. Then the next thing is plan what activity you need breaks. You yourself to get overly overwhelmed and only be in front of your screen all day trying to work. So you need to take a break. But to be disciplined, You need to tell yourself what you're doing during that break, or else your break will turn from 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour to the whole day, and you've not done anything. So try and figure out what you want your break to be. Also, for me, if I take a break, like when I'm in exam periods, I'm not able to watch series because it completely takes me off that mind space that like I'm studying. So my breaks are still productive in a way. It's nothing that would take my mental self far away from the fact that I'm currently in a setting where I need to study. So know yourself and plan your breaks accordingly. Make time to sleep because that's important. Um, and have a study board. I'm almost done. Have a study board on your wall where you stick. So you could either have the strategy where you put everything on your wall, or I think this is a really smart one. You look for key things that you know, like it's just not sticking. It's just not like you may understand a concept, but you've forgotten the word that defines it. There may have been a theory that you can explain, but you don't remember the name, or you know the name, but you don't remember the explanation. You just keep switching it up with another theory or something like that. Like there's so many things. If you're in a science course, it could be formulas that just are not staying on your mind. I go with writing it on a piece of paper and putting it in front of my mirror, or like places my eyes will see. So even if you're not consciously going to that board to see, okay, what is this? Your brain will see it, your eyes will see it every single day for some time. Your eyes will see it. And believe me, the subconscious self has a lot of power on the conscious self. So what you don't know you're looking at, you're actually looking at it. So put those notes, those definitions, those words, put it there, and it will eventually stick in your head. You will remember it. Finally, prepare to make use of your module forum. I said, psych yourself to take out any shyness. There's obviously the really bold students, like who, if you had physical lectures, it's much easier to just raise your hand or speak to your lecturer after the lecture. But then with the online life now, every communication is either directly to your lecturer or through the forum, which is what they advise. And sometimes you might feel like your question is not a good question. You might think, oh, this sounds really stupid. Like, I don't think anyone else is thinking like I'm thinking right now. Trust me, there's probably everyone else thinking how you're thinking. So just don't be shy. I can be shy sometimes with things like that. I would rather just hold my question and just not ask it because I don't want to look stupid. But then sometimes I've had to push myself and just put the question on there. And the thing with forum, your identity, your identity is out there. So like when you ask the question, they know who asked the question. But it doesn't matter. You need to just push yourself and ask the question, because think of it this way. Would you rather take the risk of going into an exam unprepared because you're shy, or be bold enough to ask a question about something you're not sure of, have the answer, and then go into your exam confident? You'd rather take the latter. So just use your module forum, ask questions. You'll be helping yourself and helping your course mates as well who may have the similar question. But these are if I was to like put it in a summary, these are the main tips I would advise you to just put in mind, and consciously, intentionally put an effort to make it work and be disciplined. But yeah, that's what you need to for preparing for your exams. I'm done now.
Okay. Thank you, Flanny. I'm sure we've all learned some few things, and would ask questions after Ursula is done. So we would invite Raymond to talk to us about time management before and during the exams. So I would show Raymond's slides, but I'll put all the slides on the chat at the end of the session. So Raymond, you can go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Raymond and I'm a PhD student at Loughborough University in the business school as well. When I was first told to give this 10 minutes speech, I was telling Ruby that, I'm probably the worst person to talk about time management. And the reason is like, I am probably one of the most disorganized person that you can imagine. Like I'm that person who will submit that assignment in the last 1 minute to go. I'll press that submit button. Preparing about exams, 8 months, 10 months, I probably have done not a single work. And then I will be just like panicking and doing all of the work in the last 1 or 2 months. That's typical me for the last 7 or 8 years. But while being in this process of 7, 8 years, making these mistakes that I made, I did pick up like 1 or 2 habits which were like really helped me down the path. So I'll share some of the tips with you. So the first one, for instance, is like create a to-do list, like as Planning was saying. This really helps in the way that it kind of subconsciously gives you an action plan to do. So for instance, on the right hand side, if you look at the slides, I've given us some kind of to-do list for me that I'll spend today 6 hours. Then I will spend time learning software, Python, gym and guitar, job search. So this is kind of a daily to-do list that you can create for yourself. It kind of starts. So when you are starting your morning, let's say you have, sorry about that. So when you are starting your morning, you can plan this. Or my dad, for instance, he does the opposite way. So what he does is he has this notebook, and every night before going to bed, he's going to create about 5 to 6 to-do lists that he has to do the next morning. And after that, the next morning, when he has completed all of the tasks, he would actually, with a red pen, tick off all of the things that he has completed and things that he is yet to do. So this is a very good idea sort of to get you like in the planning stage, like before you have, for instance, 1 or 2 months to go before the exam. Creating a to-do list kind of helps you complete the task that you want to complete and leaves you sort of prepared before you attend the exam. Second thing that I would like to say is, while I do maintain the to-do list, this is something sometimes I do study schedule, which is your daily planning, like what time you want to do well. And this kind of can be depending on you, whether you are a day person or a night person. I've worked on both ways, so it depends completely upon what suits you. Normally before the exam, what happens is I go on a night schedule way. So I will be, for instance, have my dinner at sometime like 6 p.m. and then go to my office. And from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning, that would be like the office is completely empty and I would put my full focus on that. So for some people that works, but for other people it might, they might prefer to work like 9 to 5. So you get to know, you have to know like what suits you best. Okay, like do you like to work in a more quiet environment or a more noisy environment? Whatever suits you, just go for that. Okay. Next is like practice question papers. Now there's, other than the reason that Flanny was saying that it helps for you to sort of familiarize yourself with the questions that might come. Practicing question papers, actually not one. I would actually suggest practicing 5 years of question papers. The reason is when you practice it, you actually know how much time you are going to spend. So one of the things that I've been experiences in my last 3 4 years of exam is that so I'm doing a professional exam. When I attend the exams, almost every time I have noticed this difficulty that I always leave 15 to 20 marks, which I find it really difficult to finish. Like I have answered 80 marks, and then 20 marks or 15 marks is something that I leave without answering anything. And the main reason for this is that I don't practice my question papers enough. So practicing, and that's not just for me to familiarize, but just to make sure that I know how much time I should be spending on each question. So if you have spent a couple of, let's say, 2 to 3 papers, at least that will give you a minimum idea about how much time you are actually taking to finish the paper. Otherwise, the main difficulty is that you attend the paper and then you will notice that you are not able to finish the paper. Especially, it can be a problem if you are someone who is a slow writer. And even when I myself found, for instance, that I have been able to complete a paper very well, I still have that like last 10 minutes where I sort of tend to rush. So practicing also sort of helps you to write faster and help you with your time management. The third one over here you see is use apps, Flora or Leech Block. So this is something that one of my colleagues suggested recently. So Flora is an app which helps you to sort of plant a tree. So what if you look at the picture, you can set your time. Like for instance, you are going to work 25 minutes. So you are planting a tree in your mobile phone. And for those 25 minutes, you need to be fully focused on the study, whatever you want to study. If you use your phone for any other apps, for instance, let's say in that 25 minutes, you want to browse the web or go to Instagram, Snapchat, the plant actually dies. So that is the second part. If you look at the picture, that the plant dies. But if you maintain for that 25 minutes without touching your phone, you actually have a plant. So this is kind of a very interesting app that has been built, and some people have actually found it really beneficial to allow them to focus and not start to play games or search the web or start to use Instagram or WhatsApp while they want to actually study. So give it a go. These apps are like free of charge. There is another app which I tend to use for some time, which was called the Pomodoro technique, which is you study for 2 hours and then you have a 15 minutes break, and then you again come for 2 hours, have another 15 minutes break. You can search for the Pomodoro app both in the web as well as in the app in your phones. So give it a go and see what happens. Can I just go to the next slide? Yeah. So here's some to do and not to do list. So when you are taking your practice exams for your question papers, one of the things that sometimes what happens is that I get stuck in some questions. So I'm doing a question and I'm finding it very difficult. So it's very tempting for me to actually go to the mark scheme on the answer sheet to actually see that, okay, what is the answer for this question that I'm not being able to do? What sort of that does is that if you actually think of it, in an actual exam, there will not be any answer sheet for you to look back at. Plus, second thing is, if you are looking at an answer sheet while you are practicing for an exam, it kind of takes you the time that you would be doing the exam on. So because you will be not having, so for instance, if I look at the answer sheet for 10-15 minutes, it takes my time from the whole 3-hour exam, that 10 to 15 minutes. So what I prefer to do right now is that I go for the exam, I attempt my mock exam at one go. Whether I can answer a question or not doesn't matter. I just go at one go. And after I've finished my practicing for, let's say, at the end of the 2 hours or 3 hours exam, then I tend to go to the mark scheme and see that how much I have been able to do, like where are my errors are. But if I tend to do it beforehand, it sort of takes my time from my actual exam situation technique. So that's one of them. My second point is resist all temptations. One of the things I did face difficulty during the last few years, let's say, is that let's say I study for 1 hour, and after that it is very tempting, and I'm sure a lot of people will say, okay, take a break for 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Now that is a absolutely very good thing to do, and you should do. The only thing you should not be tempted to do is, like, after you have watched for 15 minutes, continue for another 15-20 minutes. So this is what happens with me. So for instance, I study for 1 hour and then I think about, okay, now that I have worked hard a lot for 1 hour, let me just watch a bit of TV show. So I end up watching for half an hour. At the end of the episode ends in a way that it is very tempting for me to go to the next episode. And the circle continues. And what ends up happening is that I study for 1 hour and then I spend like 2 hours on watching this TV show. So this is something you should be aware that, uh, how much time to spend on the relaxation period and how much time you should actually spending on your studies. Okay. Even the same thing doesn't have to be a TV series. It can be like on your phone. Like once you are uh, seeing some memes on Instagram, you're keeping on watching memes after memes, and it can take you like from half an hour to 1 hour. So just be a bit more mindful, aware that how much time you are actually getting distracted. So try to limit that distracted time for yourself. Okay. The third one is, this is for during the exam. So during the exam, obviously you will go on reading the question paper. It's very good to have a glimpse of the all of the questions that you are facing. But one of the thing is I tend to do is, to save time later on, is mark key words or key notes, or at least, like for instance, if there are 10 questions, when I'm reading it, I would actually make notes about which of the questions are easy for me to answer and which are more difficult. Subconsciously, that helps me to know that when I'm attempting the question, which question I should attempt first, and which of the questions are difficult, and I should just leave it for the very end. That's one thing. The other thing is, like, while I'm reading a question, let's say the question number 1, making notes of the keywords can help me to formulate some of the ideas or what answer I am going to give. Sometimes I also tend to like make some notes. Let's say when I read question number 1, I would put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, some, let's say, ideas or thought that I have, like some of the answering points. So that sort of helps me later on, like when I'm writing my answers or formulating it, like it helps me sort of to structure it. So that's one thing you can as well do. Fourth is obviously start with questions that you can answer. Okay, it's easy marks questions, you have prepared for it well, so attempt those ones first. If you have any difficult questions that you can't do, the first thing is, don't worry about it. I mean, there is nothing. If it's a difficult question, there is nothing you can do about it. So do what you can for the easy questions. So attempt them first. Once you have attempted all of the questions that you can to the best of your ability, then spend the last few moments on the really difficult ones. But what I wouldn't want you to do is sort of spend huge amount of time trying to crack this really difficult question and then have really less time for the easy ones that could have scored you a lot more marks. Okay, so that's number 4. And the fifth one is, so try to, before you attempt exam, try to see how much marks you have. Okay, so if it's 100 marks for a 3-hour paper, you roughly sort of should spend 2 minutes for each mark. Okay, so for every mark you should spend, let's say, 2 minutes, not more than that. Now, obviously, during an exam situation, you can't like monitor every single minute. But what I would want you to sort of do is roughly see that, for instance, in a 3-hour exam, if you can write down 30% or 40% of the paper in the first 1 hour, when you reach the second hour, see if you have completed 60 to 70% of the paper. Because what happened with me, for instance, in one of my papers is that I literally spent 2 hours doing this Excel calculation for so I spent roughly about 2 hours trying to do this Excel thing, and the little 1 hour that I had remaining, I had to score about 60 marks, and obviously it didn't go well. I ended up spending writing 20 marks. So the Excel part was like, let's say, 30 marks, and the rest of the remaining part was 60 to 70. Quite clearly, what happened was I ended up scoring 50 to 60 in that range, because I couldn't complete my paper because I spent too much time just doing the easy bits more than it was required. Okay, so just be mindful about how much time you are spending over here. You shouldn't spend more than what is required for per mark. Okay, so there you go, some of the time management tips that I had for myself from my mistakes. Okay, next on. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Raymond. So the next one is Ursula. Next person is Ursula. She is going to talk to us about stress management during and before and during the exams. So Ursula, Let me stop sharing the screen now, and then you can take the stop presenting. Okay.
Hello, thank you, Ruby. So, as Ruby said, I'm going to be talking to you about stress management. And when I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, 2 things that I would say are good for stress management is getting your time management down and is also getting your exam preparation and planning down. So thankfully, both Flanny and Riemann have kind of covered those. So I'm going to try and talk about some of the other things that can be good for pre and during exam stress management. So sorry if I sort of repeat anything that Flanny and Riemann have said. I'm just trying to emphasize, I think these are really good points for you to sort of focus on. So first of all, I'm going to fly the sleep flag. I think sleep, absolutely amazing, whether you are a nocturnal bird like Riemann or whether you're like me and you have a set bedtime. Try to get into a good sleep habit. I know it can be easy to neglect your sleep, especially in times like this when you've got so much going on. But if you can just maintain, you know, at least 7 hours and have good sleep hygiene. So by that, I mean turning your phones off and having no screens at least an hour before bed. Having a ritual before bed, so whether that's, you know, brushing your teeth, making sure your door's locked, reading your book, but just building that routine in so that when you get into bed, you know you're going to sleep. Because what you're going to do is really hard. You're spending a lot of time focusing on your work, and you need to give yourself the time to rest and recover, okay? And it doesn't have to be always sleep. You can have a nap. I'm not a napper, but I have tried it in the past, and it can be really good for just resting your eyes and giving yourself a little bit of recovery time, let's call it. And obviously, along with good sleep, we're going to say good diet, because you need to fuel your body in a way that you're going to have loads of energy, and it makes it much easier for you to deal with different stressors if you are already taking good care of the 2 things, sleep and diet, that can be a bit of a challenge to sort of manage. So exercise, that is another thing that has obviously been shown to be good for stress management, whether that's just simply getting out the house and going for a long walk, or whether you engage in sport, so maybe doing cardio, running, cycling, lifting weights, anything like that is going to be really good for stress management, because it gives you the ability to focus on something that is not your work. So I'm not saying go and spend hours and hours in the gym, but if you can, just take some time for yourself that it's not you looking at a screen, but it's you doing something that's solely for you. Get those endorphins, because you're going to need those endorphins to keep you going, keep you motivated as well. Okay, so that's the kind of like health bit. And then what the other things that I would say that I think both Flanny and Riemann have touched upon is your downtime is important, and so is planning your downtime. So as Flanny said, you need to know what you're going to do in your breaks, but you also need to know when are you going to have some time off. It's unrealistic to expect yourself to work 24/7, 7 days a week. So you need to be able to say, okay, at this time, I'm going to do something that's my downtime. And your downtime could be going to the gym, your downtime could be watching Netflix, and your downtime could be socializing, could be anything. But as long as you've got a time in your week that you know you're going to relax, that is going to be something that you can look forward to and have a little bit of flexibility with it. So, you know, you might want to say, okay, on a Sunday afternoon, I'm going to take it a bit easier. You know, I'm going to do something, go for a nice walk with my friends. You're hitting the nail on the head with your exercise, and you're getting some social downtime. And it's really important so that you're recovering. Your brain is obviously, you've done all this revision. It needs to process the revision, right? You need to sort of mull it over, and then you can't constantly go at it. So you've got to take that step back and recover. And then the other thing that is really important pre-exam is don't suffer in silence. So Flanny said your module forum is there. Use your module forum, and if you are really, really struggling, you know, reach out to your support network. So your support network could include your tutors, could include your module leaders, and it could also be your friends. It could also be your family. You know, just having a conversation and saying to them, look, finding this really difficult, that can be helpful to some people, because you're sharing that burden. You're saying this is difficult, and they might be able to offer you a different perspective. They may be able to offer you some advice, but there are people there that are there to listen to you and to help you get through this time. So that you might know of the wellbeing advisors within your schools. They can also be a really useful point of contact to talk things through if you're feeling a bit stressed and overwhelmed. But really make sure that you use those support networks, because they're going to be really good for you in terms of supporting you through everything. So during the exam, something that I think is really important is just remembering that it's only the exam. It is not, it's really important, but it doesn't define who you are. Doesn't mean you're a better or a worse person if you find the exam difficult. Okay, that's just a thing. So I think breathing techniques can be really helpful when you're feeling slightly stressed and slightly overwhelmed. So in that moment, I want you to just take a step back and just take 5 deep breaths in and 5 deep breaths out. And in that moment, just want you to forget that you're feeling stressed and just ground yourself. Okay, so it's almost like starting afresh. So you can come back with a clearer head and say, this is what I want to attack on my paper, and this is how I'm going to do it. So I would also suggest having your snacks and stuff prepared in advance. If you're like me and you like to snack during any sort of revision or exam, have those snacks prepared so that you're not thinking, right, I want to go make a snack. Have your pot of nuts, have your fruit or whatever just already portioned so that you can just grab that and take that. But make sure that you are having your breaks if you need a break. If you need to get up, stretch your legs. Beauty of, you know, being in your home, you can sort of get up and stand up and maybe walk around the room or something just to get a bit of blood flow going. So another thing that you could do is to have a what happens if it doesn't go to plan. So there might be unforeseen problems. You know, your internet might go down, you might have a power cut. Hopefully you won't, but you might do. So you just need to think, what are you going to do in those situations? And some of those things, it might just feel a bit like a silly exercise, but even going through that exercise will be helpful to help you figure out that you know you can overcome those obstacles. For example, if I had a power cut now, I'd have made sure my laptop was charged and I didn't need to be plugged into mains power. So I would be okay there. Or if, you know, I get the wrong paper out or something, I could email my lecturer and have that conversation with them, and hopefully they'll be able to make that sort of adjustment for you. And then finally, during the exam, it can be really easy to think you've got to make it perfect. So if you've got an essay style question and you've written something, you need to know when enough is enough. So you've obviously had a go at attempting this question. You've probably come back to it, read it, made some changes, but you need to know that actually you don't need to go over it as much as you think you do. So be realistic, set yourself a limit and say, okay, I've had a go at this question. I've made some changes. I'm happy with it. If you want to strive for perfection, you're going to be there for a very long time. You're going to struggle because that probably doesn't exist. So you just need to do your best. Okay. And then finally, so I've touched upon mindset there. So I think mindset's really important. And going into it, you need to remember that you can do it. You can do it. You've put all the work in. You're going to be fine. You just need to believe that. So whether that is having some post-it notes around your workspace, like Flanny sort of said earlier, I think post-its are great. So you can have little post-its that say, you know, I can do this. I can overcome this exam. I can succeed in this module, and just have those. And, you know, whether you repeat them as positive affirmations to yourself in the morning or before the exam, just having those little hints that you can do it are going to be really key to your mindset. So another thing you could do is visualization. So visualize how you want to feel after you've done the exam. You know, you want to be proud that you've done it. You want to be happy that it's over. You want to feel like you've achieved something. So already by visualizing that, you're associating doing the exam with the positive feelings. So you're going to have a much more positive perception going into the exam if you are practicing that positive affirmation and visualization before. And I also have shared some resources on the slide. I think Raymond's already mentioned Flora. I love Flora. It's wonderful. So I set my timers for 45 minutes, do my work, have a 5-minute break, and then do 45 minutes again. And it's just a really useful way of reminding you that not to get distracted. And if you get distracted, it's okay. It just gives you a little nudge to come back. And so that can be really helpful. I know people who checking their emails can be a bit of a distraction. And what they do is every time they think about going to check their emails, they write it down on a piece of paper. So they've processed the fact that they wanted to do that, but they haven't done it. And then they've just come back to the work. So it's all about recentering yourself and just remembering what's your purpose, what you're here for. And then in terms of dealing with stress, there's some really good worksheets on Therapist Aid that are free, and they help you to identify sort of causes of stress and help you work through some proper sort of stress management, what do you call those things, actions. So you can find those on there. And then another thing that I think is really helpful is journaling and reflection. So obviously every day you are sitting down and you're trying to do your best, you're revising, and at the end of the day you kind of want to feel like you've achieved something. So much like ticking off to-do lists, you can reflect and sort of say, okay, I have done some work today, that's really good, this is what I want to achieve tomorrow, and you can just go into it and know positively what I did yesterday is going to help me today. So I've also popped some journaling prompts on that link for anyone who's interested, and I think that is my turn.
You should go ahead and do the VBOX. Yeah, so that we don't waste too much time.
Am I presenter, Ruby? Or do you want to share the...
Are you able to share?
If you make me a presenter, I can.
Caitlin, can you make Ursula presenter, please?
Yes, I'm trying that now.
Okay.
For some reason, the Teams meeting thinks that you're not here, Ursula.
Well, if not, I think, Ruby, if you share it, it should just still work.
Okay. Nope. Okay.
Oh. Oh, is that the wrong one?
Yeah.
Oh, this is not the one I can see.
Okay. So I think we can do the raffle whilst we wait. Yeah. So a CV. Yep.
Okay, that's fine. So I've put all the students' name into a raffle for a £10 Amazon voucher. So I'll just share my screen so you can all see. So you can all see the screen, right? Yep.
Yes.
So these are all the students. So I'll just... And the winner is Neri. So Neri, please can you put your email in the group chat, and then Caitlin will send you the link for your voucher. That's okay.
Okay.
Well done, Neri.
Caitlin, I think you can take over now.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okie dokie. Is the VVox quiz going okay? Or are you still having problems?
I've just sent it to Ruby
Okay.
on
Brilliant.
email.
Okay.
It should be the one in the Teams chat.
Okay.
In the meantime, if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask the presenters/speakers or anyone from Life Beacon or myself, you can either use raise the hand function in the chat, or you can type it in the chat if you do not want to speak over the microphone. And I'll have the chat open. Just please put in your questions, who you would like to answer your questions and who has directed them at. No problem, Jake. Thanks for coming.
Ruby, have you got it?
Yep.
Brilliant.
So I click on it.
Yeah, so it's just the participants need to go to VVox and I enter that ID. So is there not a link? So if participants want to go to VVox.app and then type in that, and then Ruby can go off to the next. Let us know if you are having trouble doing that, anyone? So Ruby, if you want to go to the next slide. And then you need to start the slideshow, I think. Or does it not work for you?
No.
What happens if you start the actual slideshow, Ruby? Does it not do anything?
Nope.
That's not starting the slideshow. As in if you like press F5.
If I press.
You know, the run slideshow. Next one. Yeah. So, has anyone managed to get onto it?
Yeah, I'm on it at the moment.
Okay, perfect. So can you see the question?
The question isn't on the app.
Good. Okay, back in a second. So we can't make me a presenter because that might be a bit of an issue if can't make me. It's not working for you.
But the app gives you an option to ask questions. So I think we're actually supposed to put our answers in that section of the app.
Ursula, I've also made you an attendee, so you might be able to present now.
The share screen is still grayed out for me. It says only organisers and presenters can share.
Okay, I'll keep going. I'll keep having a look.
It seems everyone else is a presenter except me.
Yeah, Teams thinks that you don't exist.
Do you want me to leave and try and join again?
You can do. I think Microsoft Teams thinks it's a scheduled meeting, so it might kick everybody out in 3 minutes anyway. But
Okay.
I hope not.
So then I think we should just allow everybody to ask a question if they want to, since the presenters are here. Then they can answer. So if anyone has a question, because we have just 3 minutes more, so if anyone has a question on the topic that has been presented, or any other question that they have not touched on, please and raise your hands and ask a question, or type your question in the chat box.
I have a question. What's people's favourite reward after they have like completed some revision or completed an exam? Mine is going out for food with friends. That's my favourite thing as a reward.
I would probably take a whole day off and sleep. After not sleeping and waiting to write the exam, I think I would just, that's what I do. I'll just take a whole day to sleep.
I think that's a good one. I like that.
I think I 5 hours of Netflix and then sleep.
Raymond, we didn't hear you.
I said I tend to watch 5 hours of Netflix and then go to sleep.
Mine is ice cream.
What flavour?
Ooh. So I'm gluten intolerant, so it really depends on if I want to be naughty or not. So if I'm going to be naughty, then I'm going to eat something with gluten in it, and it will be chocolate fudge from Ben and Jerry's. If not, then honeycomb.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Hello?
Oh, I think the next is not too great. Yeah. Kathleen, yeah, I think it's 7, so if
Okay.
you can.
Of course. Thank you so much to everyone who spoke. I certainly learned a thing or two about how I'm going to revise. I'm definitely going to change some bad habits because I always go on my phone in my break. Thank you very much. It was very, very helpful. And I hope that everybody here gained some valuable insight in how to not only manage their time and their stress, but also find resources, which Ursula mentioned, and avoid things that Raymond and Fanny mentioned, etc., etc. And thank you to Life Beacon in general for offering to take part in this with me. I really, really appreciate it. You guys have been wonderful, and I hope everybody really enjoys it. Final words from me, just a shameless welfare plug. The Bake Off event is still happening. You have until Saturday to send in your submissions to either my personal at Caitlin Green X on Instagram or the at Loughborough on Instagram. You have until Saturday at midnight. And yeah, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope everybody enjoyed it, and good luck for everyone's exams. You got this.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Best of luck, guys.
Thank you very much. You're all free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for coming. We got some
Same.
really good turnout. I'm really pleased.
I see.
Thank you for approaching us.
Thank you. I hope did the person put his email there?
She sent me it directly,
Oh, okay.
so
Okay,
it's all
then
right.
that's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay.
I've got it.
Thank you for having us, Caitlin.
No
And
problem.
we're always here, so you can reach out to us anytime.
Thank you very much, and
all the
likewise.
best in your exams as well.
Thank you, and you too.